The Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat and the Mercedes GLS 63 are both derived from hot rodding. How else can you explain the existence of these huge, heavy, absurdly overpowered SUVs?
They are beyond the everyday affordable cars we try to feature on this show, but both of them represent something going on in the market right now that we find fascinating. And that is because SUVs are so ubiquitous, because they are so popular and everybody makes an SUV that does everything you can imagine, why not make them supercars?
Great cars, great roads, and all the reasons we love to drive.
TV, web, and podcast. This is Everyday Driver.
We dream about hypercars and supercars because they have performance that you can't get anywhere else. Except now that you can. In these big 7-seaters that we have here are supercar levels of performance available to you and the entire family.
They have to carry people and gear and luggage, and they've got to tow things. Oh, you have to be able to drive them daily. They've got to be able to get dirty. You have to drive them in all kinds of weather. You've got to be able to have road trips in this thing. It's got to have a lot of technology because these are the trucks you're going to want to drive constantly. They're so wonderful, they're so useful. And then both of these have track mode and drag race mode.
No longer is it the people in the low-slung thing with an exotic Italian badge and only 2 seats slinging themselves into the future at speeds we can only dream about. Now we can all do it, with gear in the back, and if you'd like, towing a trailer.
Look at it this way. The Durango Hellcat has an NHRA certified quarter-mile time of 11.5 seconds. But then there's the Mercedes AMG, and decades ago, the two gentlemen who founded it were really just engine builders. They were hot rod builders trying to make Mercedes cars go faster than they were ever intended to be. Then once Mercedes took them over, they made it official. And here we have, because of hot rodding and the proliferation of technology in the hot rodding industry, these two absurd trucks.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Covercraft. Use the code EVERYDAY21 for 10% off your order.
Really, the only differences between this and any other Durango that you see, especially the SRTs, are the hood scoops, the lower front spoiler, the chin spoiler down there, the Hellcat badges that are everywhere, and the giant exhaust pipes out back.
What they've done is nipped and tucked the exterior and changed the interior to align it better with the rest of the lineup.
I want huge fender flares. I want something just to look absurd. It's a 7-passenger SUV with this much power, and it sounds like this. I want it to be a clown show. I do.
We recently had a Durango RT. We were quite impressed with that. That one didn't even have half as much power as this one does, and it looked almost identical in size. This generation of the Durango has been around for more than a decade now, and it's built on the chassis of the prior version Mercedes GLS. The old Mercedes GL chassis underpins not only this Durango, but also the current Jeep Grand Cherokee, so that chassis is ancient.
At this point, it was probably designed 15 years ago, so the interior space wasn't a full-size thinking. It was a medium size. We want to have something to offer the market, but it wasn't the big one. The rear seats are really just for kids, even though technically it's a 6 or 7 passenger. And the luggage space is fine, especially when you fold those rear seats down. It's 3/4 the size of the full SUVs.
In here you'll find their great Uconnect screen, and all of the gauges and the entire center console looks very similar to those siblings in the lineup.
You're not buying anything extra special in the interior, and you don't get that many more features than any other SRT. When you realize that this Durango SRT Hellcat costs $93,000, you're going to start to question the materials. Because as good as they are, and as much as I like them, The price of this has now moved beyond the Durango.
The one choice in here I don't understand at all is they've decided that the accents should be a raw carbon fiber look. And while I've seen raw carbon fiber on some supercars, and we're in the supercar realm here, I get it. Mostly those are exterior trim pieces. When you bring them on the interior, they just look like smudged piano black.
So you're going to have to come to grips with the fact that you're buying an engine and a transmission that has the last hurrah of the Dodge Durango screwed to it. The front end of this GLS is so aggressive and so imposing, but I like what Mercedes is doing, designing with highlights rather than sharp lines or character lines. They're letting the surface define the highlight width to give you that all the way down the shoulder and around. It wraps, and then really just the graphics of the headlights and taillights and those wheel arches, they're so massive. But you look at all the shapes around, even the radiuses along the wheel arches, they match everything else that's going around the car, and then once you get in, they match all the design language on the inside.
The interior in this GLS is up to S-Class standards. It's just, there's more of it. I'm not a guy that typically likes really light interiors, and I never really like wood, and yet somehow Mercedes has put both in here, and I kind of love it.
You don't think of this as just sports car and just sort of the grays and blacks and aluminum and maybe some carbon fiber. You can get your GLS that way. But what if you owned a boat and you sat here and you thought, I'd like to check the yacht box and have the teak, well actually it's walnut, but all the little accentuated trim pieces all the way around. Not only do the interior materials take primary importance, but it's the interior experience. Even though they're already being surpassed with a new design, this still works. It's a hoodless design, but I like that it's 2/3 the length of the instrument panel, and it feels like all the tech is right here for you.
In here is hidden something they call the energizing coach. You can tell this car you're feeling stressed or tired or worried, and it will actually change what the seat massagers are doing. It'll do a scent, it'll change the cabin lighting to try to make you feel better. This has all of the latest tech that Mercedes has for making this kind of drive for itself and to keep you away from collisions. In fact, it's so aggressive for its lane keep assist, it will actually put on the brakes on the side that needs to be staying away from things. It pre-senses things to the point that it has a pre-safe sound that the car emits to make your ears defend themselves milliseconds before a crash. I'm not kidding. There's this level of absurdity going on in here. Of course, you paid for it at $150 grand.
The back seat has lots of space, and the third row is excellent. You can truly get 7 people in here comfortably. I can't believe how good this is. For the longest time, I wasn't that into Mercedes. This is brilliant.
Everyday Driver is brought to you by Hagerty. Let's drive together.
Dodge is sprinkling the magic Hellcat fairy dust on just about everything they build. They've looked around, and the Durango was pretty much the only thing left. So, of course, for a very special limited edition, 1 model year only for 2021, they made the Hellcat Durango.
We love the Hellcat motor. You can't help but like it. I mean, come on, look. If you're paying attention at all, if you're breathing and you like cars, that's compelling.
Now, in all of these Hellcat versions, they use the same 6.2-liter supercharged SRT V8. But in all of these vehicles, it makes varying levels of torque and power. This one in the Durango makes 710 horsepower, 645 pound-feet of torque, but you're never going to be able to tell from the passenger seat or the driver's seat what's the difference. Everything is just fast.
The thing I like about superchargers is the fact that under your foot is power at all times, and it has a naturally aspirated build to it that is really fun to work with. I've always preferred superchargers for that.
It's yowling constantly. It's a glorious mechanical beast. This is why they're special. This is why they sold out. The Hellcat engine in anything will always be desirable.
And that 8-speed is great. It responds really, really quickly.
In automatic mode, the pedals don't work. In every other mode they do. I shouldn't have to hunt for the drive mode and, oh, I need to put it in sport and then I can drop a gear just so I can go fast. What if you want to downshift? Sound will always sell. Sound will always be the most desirable part of this thing. Listen to that.
Now, I know what you're thinking. You put a monster motor in a huge chassis like this and it can't possibly handle. But it's better than you think.
Yeah, you can take the kids and the family and all your gear and you can tow stuff that'll snap in the wind behind your truck, but the power, the way it drives, the way it composes itself.
It ceases to be a special edition in that you can put most of the things except for the motor on lesser Durangos. And I actually think that may be where your money's better spent. If you get the 6.4 liter non-supercharged big Hemi V8 in the standard SRT, guess what? 0 to 60 is 4.4. What if your daily did this? The entire family screaming, partially out of fear, partially out of fun, crazy numbers ticking by up here, because you can, with everyone.
Since we're talking about hot rodding, let's start with the engine on this. It's a 4-liter twin-turbo V8. It makes 603 horsepower and only 627 pound-feet of torque. And in comparison to the Hellcat, yeah, it's down. It's way down. And you might think, well, it's not going to be nearly as fun to drive as the Hellcat. Hellcat for the win, right? You'd be wrong. It's because of the new technology that Mercedes AMG is putting in many of their cars and trucks, and that is the EQ Boost. It is a 48-volt starter generator. It gives you an extra 21 horsepower and an extra 180 pound-feet of torque. And Mercedes makes it clear that that is in addition to the power output of the twin-turbo V8. That means 811 pound-feet of torque in a 6,000 pound vehicle, which is a lot.
0 to 60 in this is about 3.6 seconds. The Durango gets away with being the fastest 7-seater because its 0 to 60 beats it like a tenth and actually has a slightly higher top speed of 180. Short of the Autobahn, you're never going to be doing 180 miles an hour with the family in this, and even on the Autobahn, I can't imagine you doing it. If you haven't noticed, this is large. Look at the nose. It is demanding that you get out of the way. It has 2 snow shovels underneath that grille that just pick up everything you can imagine in the winter. This 9-speed is very fast. One of the problems is that you can shift it for yourself, and it listens. There we're down into more power and it takes off. However, it would rather shift for you. It really, really would rather you just left it alone to do its job.
When you dive into the modes, by the way, there are 4 different ways of accessing the modes. On the left, at your thumb down here, above the flat bottom steering wheel, are the individual settings for everything. So not just the engine output, but the suspension and the steering feel. You can select those individually, but to the right is that magic dial. You can select individual. You can go all the way to sand and slippery mode, but if you go back the other way, you can go to sport, and then there's sport plus, and then track mode. 6 different modes in this thing. But the most important thing about this is it weighs 6,000 pounds, but it doesn't feel like it. I'm not saying that either of these SUVs have some sort of road feel or handling feel. But the Mercedes has a level of precision that I wasn't expecting.
The personality of this is completely the opposite of the Durango. This is an elegant, inviting place to be that happens to have incredible performance. It's not about the performance first, honestly. You can get lesser versions of the GLS and they're still wonderful. It's just this has that level of performance tacked on top of it that makes it otherworldly. The next time your local car club takes a run into the mountains, you can take this. There's far too much mass here for this to be as capable as it is. Both of these have supercar capable performance, and yet it is the whole family. I'm so confused that this is the world we live in, but I do wonder if it makes more sense here than it does in a supercar you drive 1,000 miles a year.
I love Hellcat at anything. I do. I love the power. It is truly amazing. It's wonderful. The sound is just, it's so enjoyable. But I don't feel like I'm getting a bargain.
What if we were spending six figures on cars that can take us on adventures, and the person driving is having a blast, a supercar level of experience, and the entire family is there? I actually think 150 grand for this is a much better use of money than $150,000 for a supercar. But the more I drive these incredibly capable monsters, the more I think about small, lightweight, low-power sports cars. Let's get those back. Let's get something super analog, super light, not that powerful back as the fun car. Let's leave the supercar performance for the super big boys. Honestly, if you'd told me when we started this show there would come a day when you and I are driving 6,000-pound SUVs with supercar performance, I would have said you were lying.
This does feel like a late night session of, you know what we should do?
Yes, it does.
And it culminated in these, the Durango Hellcat. We love Hellcat engines. It's almost like anything with a Hellcat engine you should just say yes to. And here I am finding myself saying no, because I don't think the price matches the rest of the car. It's $93,000 and you're just getting the engine and transmission, and it's great, it's fast, it does all the noisy, crackly things, and we love it. But not when you have the GLS 63, because of everything else it does. And so here I am justifying $60,000 extra stretch dollars just to get the actual one you really want, the one I want, at least.
I have to say I agree with you. The fact that this Durango is $93,000, the Hellcat engine's fun, it's engaging, it's naturally endearing in anything they put it in. Yes. I am waiting for the minivan. Bring me the minivan, please. But I think at $60,000 where you wind up is the standard SRT, which has the non-supercharged, non-Hellcat 6.4-liter engine. It's almost as fast. That's the one that makes sense and feels like the price point.
What we're saying is the Hellcat is no longer good enough. Just the Hellcat engine itself. It's got to have the tech and the luxury and everything else the GLS does, and that makes me want it more. And so you heard me justify it on camera. This is the one I'm staying with. As much as I love it, as great as it sounds, I do want this. I would happily drive it, but it's also already sold out. So this is the one you're really left with anyway. Because the interior works for the lower levels, but it doesn't work for this price. All you're really getting is this kind of power, and you have to be willing to pay for that. So in this sense, no, I don't want it. I want it to be more boisterous and flamboyant and just outlandish.
The struggle I have with the Hellcat is the fact that it is a great motor in an average old chassis. The Mercedes feels special going slow. This feels old going slow. It feels kind of cheap going slow.
The Durango is $93,000, but I am justifying a $60,000 upgrade from there to the Mercedes because it doesn't just do all that stuff. Then you're reminded about the level of luxury in this thing. It has more space, it's heavier, it's just a touch slower than the Hellcat, but the GLS is the one that I want. I still can't believe that it's somewhat fun to drive.
The level of athleticism and performance available here, wrapped in this elegant package, is like a ballroom instructor. They're much more capable than you realize. They're in much better shape than you thought at first glance because all you saw was how well put together they were and how well they move. And then you realize they're strong and capable and do things that the average person can't. That's the GLS.